Some of the people that the prosecutors thought would help them prosecute him have actually turned the other way, and now they're coming back into Combs' camp. One of them was supposed to be the third woman to testify during the trial about all kind of grisly things. She now says he wasn't such a bad guy. He's, they had their difficulties, but now she thinks that he should be treated leniently at sentencing. So it's hard to say where that goes.
Actually, Cassie wrote a letter to the judge as well. Cassie Ventura, Sean Diddy Combs' former girlfriend, who was the prosecution's star witness, or one of the star witnesses against him during the trial. She was heavily pregnant, about 8 months pregnant when she testified, giving birth shortly after her testimony. But she wrote a letter to the judge, and she does not want Diddy to get off. She wants him to spend time in prison. She does not believe he's a changed man. In her letter, she says, he has not changed. I know the real Diddy, and he has not changed.
Well, Cassie and others who testified at the trial maintained that, he was violent. He used violence to get what he wanted. And several of them also wrote letters saying they fear for their own lives if he's released, that he'll come back and seek retribution against them. And they, too, as you said, agree that whatever he's claiming now about being a reformed good guy who's off drugs and won't do violent things anymore is not the real Diddy, and that, the bad boy of Bad Boy Productions will be back.
In fact, in Cassie's letter to the judge, she does bring up the fact that she discussed the assaults and he denied them until that video came out of him beating her up in the hotel hallway.
Right.
And she said until then he had denied it, and then he finally took responsibility.
And this morning, his lawyers released a video that they plan to show the judge in court today, showing Sean Diddy Combs playing on the beach with children, giving inspiring pep talks to children, crying after Kim Porter died, the mother of several of his children, and showing a very emotional, inspirational, good guy, Sean Combs. But the danger of that is it can cut both ways in court. The judge may say, look, this is proof that in the past he has said all the right things, all while he was doing the wrong things. And so you never know how something like that, it's about an 11-minute clip, is going to affect the judge as they decide what the ultimate sentence is.
I did see that video, and it is a heavily produced video, as you said, of Sean with his family. He's got 7 children. He's got a mother who's now 84 years old. She's had some health issues.
He's been at the trial every day.
Yes, she has. And most of his children have been at the trial from time to time as well. In fact, one day during the trial, I had to go through the security checkpoint and the metal detectors, and his 2 twin daughters were right there with me coming in. So everybody goes through the metal detectors except for you, because you have a permanent court pass.
Well, in the sentencing memo that the defense wrote, they made a very large point of the fact that it's not just Combs who's been affected by his arrest, and they claim his whole career has been destroyed and everything he had going. But they say his family has really been affected as well, that they were going to have a TV production that got canceled and all kinds of opportunities were lost. And he promised them at the last hearing that he had in court just about a week ago that he's got big plans for them again. So he's telling them once he gets out of jail, and he's expecting to get out of jail soon. I really, he comes across as confident that he's not going to get such a long prison term. He's been very buoyant in court ever since he got exonerated on those 2 charges that could have put him away for life. He's been smiling. He's talking inspirationally to his family in court. His whole defense team seems supercharged.
But this is the same judge who denied him bail. He tried to get out on bail during during the trial, before the trial, while he was waiting to be sentenced, and he was denied.
And just days ago, this same judge rejected the defense's attempt to throw out the charges, the remaining charge again, to reverse the jury's verdict, saying on First Amendment grounds, these charges should not stick, because they claim that because Combs was filming these encounters with these women, the sexual encounters that went on for as many as 4 days at a time sometimes, and involved multiple male sex workers separately, never at the same time. But the defense was saying that was basically First Amendment activity because he was filming the encounters. But the judge said no to that, that was not. He wasn't like a typical porn producer or something, because he wasn't having them sign waivers that, that what goes on there, is okay. And he wasn't doing the things that a normal porn producer would do. So you can't claim he was engaging in First Amendment activity.
Let's take another look behind us at the scene outside the court. A lot of reporters, a lot of people. There's still a bit of a line there. There's only room inside the courtroom for how many? There's
probably about 100.
100. So 100.
But not all spectators.
Right,
a lot
family,
of those will be journalists.
supporters.
They're having journalists will be allowed to sit in the jury box, since the jury won't be there. And then a lot of journalists will be in the spectator section. But he generally has 2 or 3 rows that are dedicated to his family and then some close friends. And they've been there throughout the trial.
And his lawyers. He's a huge team of lawyers.
He has 8 lawyers, and many lawyers behind those 8 lawyers. And 4 of them expect to speak in court today. That's part of the reason why they expect the proceeding to go on the entire day, and as I said, maybe stretch into Monday.
And the prosecution also has several lawyers, the government lawyers, and they will speak in court as well.
They have 5 lawyers, but they used to have 6. Maureen Comey, who really led the prosecution, she was, I don't think many people know this, but she was doing almost all the work. She was really leading it in every way and speaking constantly in court, arguing all the important points. Well, about 2 weeks after he was convicted and exonerated, she was fired by the Justice Department with no real reason given. She has since sued the U.S. government, saying she was basically fired for political reasons and it's unjust and she wants her job back. But that will be a big voice that is missing for the prosecution.
And let me remind people that Maureen Comey is James Comey's daughter. So there's that other connection too, which...
James Comey, the former FBI director who was fired by Trump President Trump during his first term, and has since criticized the president repeatedly and made Trump mad on several occasions, and many people think that is behind why Maureen Comey won't be in the courtroom today. And James Comey not only was the FBI director, he worked under the Bush administration as one of the top Justice Department officials, and he was also U.S. attorney. And while after this courthouse behind me opened in 1995, he was U.S. attorney after the 9/11 attacks around 2002. And
Maureen Comey also was on the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and she put her away in prison. Ghislaine Maxwell was of course Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, and Maureen Comey prosecuted that case as well.
Yes,
and got a conviction against Ghislaine Maxwell.
That was really her specialty. Although she worked in the public corruption unit, she really specialized in these prosecutions of individuals who did sexual wrongdoing and violated a lot of women and sometimes men too in these cases that are really becoming a specialty both of this office and the sister office over in Brooklyn for the federal prosecutors.
So if you are interested in finding out more information, you could always go to our website, apnews.com, or our app, our AP News app, to find out more. We'll be live streaming from outside the court. Of course, cameras are not allowed in the court. We will have a sketch artist in the court, so we will be able to know. Directly across the street, as you'll see soon enough, is the federal courthouse where Sean Diddy Combs will be sentenced. With me is Larry.
Combs was filming these encounters.
Just getting set up right now. Set up just a second. Who are these people? Is that happy account?
So much success
This new woman.
for about a year.
Time served.
And time
essentially.
served of a year.
So maybe the judge is going to give him more than time served.
But we should say that the maximum he could get is 20 years.
And that's what I want to get into for a minute. Because this is some racist you-know-what, this Mann Act. The Mann Act was passed during Reconstruction so black men would not date white women. And that's why they made taking somebody across state lines and giving them money not just a federal felony, but 20 years in prison.
Well, 10 years. 10 years per count.
20, right. But
he has two counts,
but
that's
he
why
would
it's
get 20 years.
Right.
The idea of again, think about somebody gets on a plane with a woman, takes her to Vegas and pays her for sex, takes her back. You're going to give this guy 20 years? This is a racist law. And look,
When it was invented you're right. When this law came out, it absolutely was, and it was only used to early on to convict
I just want to make one other point.
Correct.
I want to make one other point, and then I know you disagree with this. Look, he's been a terrible person. I mean, what he did to Cassie in 2016 is unspeakable. He is awful for what he did. But you have to look at what he was convicted of. He was convicted of the Mann Act. He was acquitted of all the force, fraud, and coercion and racketeering. The jury acquitted him. The prosecutors laid out the case. The jury didn't buy it. So to sentence him as if this is about force, fraud, and coercion, to me, it undermines what the jury did. And, give him, come out with a recommendation of 4 years. But 11 years?
I think there's a couple things here. Number one, to say the Mann Act is a racist law, yes, when it was enacted 100 years ago, it may have been, or 130 years ago. Now it is not, and I have the stats to prove it. 14% of people convicted of the Mann Act are African American, which is actually less than the population as a whole. So it is now applied in a race-neutral way, and I think it's important to say that in the context of Diddy, that he's not being targeted because he's a racist law. He's being targeted because of a race-neutral law.
Okay, so
that we all acknowledge he violated.
So let me ask you something.
You can still argue that
if Diddy didn't go across state lines, and he was just prosecuted for prostitution,
for solicitation, of prostitution.
Would it be a misdemeanor or a felony?
I suppose it would be a felony. If
No. It's absolutely a misdemeanor.
Well, there are prostitution charges that can't be, especially when violence is involved.
Suppose your nose was a doorpost. That's not what happened.
No, but hold on.
That's not what happened.
I know, but the difference is a plane ticket. The only difference is a plane ticket.
The difference is the law.
And the law is a racist, antiquated.
It is not racist. It is antiquated.
It is an
He just gave you the
antiquated,
stats that it's not racist.
It's a ridiculous. Would he have been prosecuted if it was just a Mann Act issue?
No, he never would have been. But he was.
But also, that's
Ari,
not what
you acknowledge every prosecution. I would say 90% of them have ancillary in the alternative causes of action that sometimes people are convicted under, and we still punish them for that.
I know, but then the question is, what do you give them? And what I'm saying to you is, if this were a state crime where you didn't cross state lines, it would 100% be a misdemeanor.
But you keep saying if, but it's not.
The only difference, Charles, is a plane ticket. And are you going to give somebody?
That's the reality of what happened.
You are not arguing what is. You're arguing what you think should be.
No, I'm just.
What is each conviction of the Mann Act carries 10 years in prison.
A maximum.
Maximum.
Is this a crime that requires intent?
Of course, every crime requires intent.
Right. So if it requires intent, what's the difference if some guy is going to have sex with a prostitute in Los Angeles and the prostitute's from LA, or she's from Indiana and flies to LA?
The worst thing that could have happened with Diddy is that he was prosecuted on state law crimes, because we know that he committed horrible acts of abuse.
He should have been prosecuted for that.
But he wasn't. But nevertheless, he was prosecuted.
Because he
was
paid someone
convicted.
off, by the way.
But terrible.
Yeah.
And he
terrible,
horrible.
I know. But this sentence should not be about that.
The judge has a lot of leeway here. The judge can give him time served, all the way up to 10 years per count.
But give him time. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying 11 years for this is ridiculous.
You're getting so worked up about just the recommendation from the prosecutors. That doesn't mean this is what the judge is going to do.
I know, but they're sore losers.
They
just want to save face.
Had they said 5 years,
if they were sore losers, they should have said 20 years.
I think they think he's a monster. and that he should get a lot of time.
He may well be a monster.
Right, and so if the law allows for 10 years per count, they're saying he's a monster, give him the 10 years per count, or give him, in this case, 5.5 years per count.
Did you even get to make the point you wanted to make that this was OJ?
I can't because we're out of time.
I'm Nina from Dallas, Texas. I feel as though Diddy is a monster. He deserves to serve at least
Sir, I'm rolling now.
You okay?
Sir, I'm rolling now. I'm rolling? I'm rolling now. You can say that now on camera.
Sometimes you just have too many friends. He left. All right.
Right there. So as long as it's like pointing like almost north, it's opposite of satellite.
Wow, a lot of people got here since the last time I was out.
They say get here before 3 hours.
I have an 8:20. And then I'm going to use the bathroom and get coffee. 9 and 9:15. They initially wanted 9:45, but I said there's going to be too much movement out here at 9:45. Rather just if one of you guys have to run around. Yeah. Come on. Funeral band. Between that and hearing everyone talking next to me, it's too much. The band is preparing for Diddy's arrival. Can't make it up. Very odd music. All right, it stopped. A lot of media has set up Rosanna and Kurt since we last chatted, and we've been hearing this date, October 3rd, essentially since Diddy, his trial wrapped up back in July. The sentencing hearing itself begins at 10 o'clock this morning, and that could take a few hours because there's a lot to be said on both sides. But lawyers, like you said, submitted a letter last night in which Diddy admitted that these have been the hardest 2 years of his life and that he has no one to blame but himself. The question now remains, will Judge Arun Subramanian listen to his pleas for a second chance? I want to get to that 4-page letter that Diddy and his lawyers submitted because that really marked the first time that he made any substantial statement about his case. Here are some key pieces of it. In one part, Diddy writes, "In my life, I have made many mistakes, but I am no longer running from them. I am so sorry for the hurt that I caused, but I understand that the mere words 'I'm sorry' will never be good enough, as these words alone cannot erase the pain from the past." In another, he says, "I am now sober for the first time in 25 years. I I have been trying my best to deal with my drug abuse and anger issues and take accountability, as well as positive steps towards healing. And I ask you for mercy today, not only for my sake, but for the sake of my children. Diddy's lawyers have said that he should be sentenced to no more than 14 months in prison with credit for good behavior and time served. That would indicate they want him to walk free. The judge rejected a last-ditch effort to overturn his conviction on 2 prostitution-related charges. Diddy's legal team argues he was an amateur pornographer not engaging in prostitution and that the guilty verdict violates his First Amendment rights. Prosecutors submitted their sentencing recommendations earlier this week and want Diddy to serve at least 11 years in prison, a significant increase from their initial request of 4 to 5 years. In a 161-page memorandum, they detailed that Diddy is unrepentant and insisted that the punishment for his crimes of conviction must take into account the manner in which he committed them. Meantime, Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex-girlfriend and the star witness at his federal trial, pleaded the judge to consider the many lives that he's upended with his abuse and control. She and another alleged victim, Mia, who testified under a pseudonym, are expected to address the court today. It's still unclear if Jane, who also testified anonymously, will share any words with the court. But former prosecutor Seth Zuckerman weighed in on the case last night on the 10 o'clock news. And when I allude to a lot being said on both sides, we have Diddy getting the opportunity to speak, some of the alleged victims speaking, and then on top of that, Diddy's legal team put together a 15-minute sentencing video that the judge asked to see yesterday before it is played in court before everybody today. Now, his lawyers have said that he's been subjected to inhumane living conditions and has been on constant suicide watch in jail. For now, we're live here, though, in Lower Manhattan. Rosanna and Kurt, back to you. Yeah, a lot more of that fanfare happening during the actual trial itself. Again, we had 8 weeks. We had certain people, high-profile witnesses testifying, Cassie Ventura. We had Kid Cudi here at one point. The music behind me is actually over at the funeral parlor, has nothing to do with court. But right across the street from us, a lot of media set up. And then you have, of course, Diddy's family, who usually arrives in their own means of transportation. And everybody takes a look at who else is coming when it comes to lawyers on both sides of the aisle, so on and so forth. Diddy and Cassie and other high-profile figures typically enter through a different entrance. Kurt and Rosanna. Had to mention that it's a funeral.
Yeah, I would love to. But I'm still setting up.
Haven't seen any crazy supporters over there, right? Oh, that's our Wi-Fi? That's cool.
You gotta be careful down there.
Testing 1, 2, 3. This is the right microphone. This is you hear me in the correct microphone. So P. Diddy is inside. P. Diddy is inside. He's before the judge. He's about to be sentenced. At the courthouse, P. Diddy is inside before the judge. He's about to speak. The judge will render his sentence.
I'm not used to this. Oh, Brian is here, I think.
Hey, Gina's over there.
Yeah.
Right, the lawyer? Is that him? The lawyer.
A lawyer. Guys, excuse us.
An appointment for citizenship? Citizenship? On the corner?
Brandon. Thank you, man. Yeah, he's a lawyer. Brian. Yeah, Brian. His name is Brian.
Kenny. Every time I try to film that light, it goes with my lens, that light.
Are you able to get some shots there? Thank you.
Blink, 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 blink. Yeah, it's just.
I'm so sorry. Close the light there.
Put that in your pocket or something.
Candy, girl. Candy. I'm set up now. Look, I was funny, girl. Come, everybody say hi. There goes Candy right there. Make sure you follow her.
Right. Under that law.
But can the judge
The answer is no.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Hold on. If two people engage,
I should be taking a law school.
If two people engage in S&M,
right,
voluntarily,
right,
you could call that violence, couldn't you? For Diddy, and they have a lot they want to present, and they are, I got to tell you, this is going to be a really long hearing. What's going to be interesting is they are talking about, look, I think there's no issue you can call Cassie a victim because of the 2016 beating. And so what she has to say is really relevant as a victim in the case. The interesting thing is, what about Jane and Mia? The jury didn't find, at least according to the criminal standard, that they were victims. They did not find that because he was found not guilty on sex trafficking. The Mann Act has nothing to do with them. It has to do with it has to do with the sex worker.
Right, but they were present for those.
Doesn't make them a victim.
Or just be ready.
I get it, but their testimony, as far as this,
it's not victim's impact, is what I'm saying. They've already testified as witnesses, but it's not victim's impact.
Let me just say this. Cassie, to say that about Cassie.
No, I didn't. You didn't hear what I said.
I thought you said Cassie and Jane.
I said Mia and Jane.
Oh, Mia, yeah.
Yeah.
Mia was not part of it.
Cassie definitely is a victim because the 2016 video was introduced into evidence.
Also, you remember the things that happened while the Mann Act was violated. Like her being peed on?
Well, no. But what I'm saying to you is that would be, the problem is the jury didn't find that lack of consent.
No, I get it.
And that's what I'm saying.
But at least that is directly related to the violations of the Mann Act, right? She's in the freak off when these things happen to her.
But what the defense argued was that was consensual. Well, no, they did.
I get that they argued that.
And the jury didn't find it wasn't, is my point. I'm not saying it was or wasn't. I'm just saying when the judge is ruling, there was no...
I'm just saying, what I'm saying is that the judge, from what I have read, will take into consideration acts of violence or that were done during these, when prostitutes were...
We'll see. But if there were acts of violence, then he would have been convicted on sex trafficking.
No.
Sure.
No.
That's what sex trafficking is. If you are violent where somebody is not consenting,
correct,
then you are guilty of sex trafficking.
Right.
Under that law.
But will the judge take into consideration Cassie's testimony of what she says happened? I get it that the defense is going to say she was discredited and this, that, da.
Well, they found him not guilty on that.
I understand, but things that are related to the violations of the Mann Act, right? So anytime that a prostitute was hired, taken over state lines, and they had whatever encounters they had, whatever happened during those encounters should be...
Let me ask you something.
Relevant.
It
should be relevant to the sentence.
Okay, let me give you a hypothetical.
I'm just asking you.
No, let me give you a hypothetical.
How about you just answer my question?
Okay, the answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on. If two people engage...
I should be taking a law school.
If two people engage in S&M,
right,
voluntarily,
right,
you could call that violence, couldn't you?
It depends on how they view it after the fact.
Suppose not after the fact, during the fact.
No. During the fact, sure. Okay.
If they consent and say somebody gets whipped, that would be a violent act if it were non-consensual, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a violent act.
It's a violent act.
It's a violent act, period, but you may be into that violent act.
If it's consensual, are you a victim?
Of what?
A victim of anything. Are you a victim?
You can't just say a victim. I don't know, maybe a victim of something. I'm not a victim of, if I wanted that, then no, I'm not a victim of that particular act.
So his position was, and again, I'm not embracing what he's saying. His position to the jury...
Feels like you are a little bit,
not,
but...
Because I already said, Cassie can be considered a victim.
Right.
Certainly based on the 2016 video, which was introduced into evidence.
Right.
She can be called a victim.
See, you're saying only based on that video. And I'm saying that the things that Jane and Cassie said happened to them during the freak-offs the judge will take into consideration. Can take into consideration. I don't know if he will, but he can. Well, legally.
Legally, the question is, will the judge do it if the jury found basically, look, there's no proof there was no consent there, because you got to prove no consent to whatever was done. And had there been no consent, he would have been found guilty of sex trafficking. He wasn't found guilty of sex trafficking because they couldn't find there was that lack of consent beyond a reasonable doubt. So if they're
beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, now the question is, can the judge lower the standard?
Exactly.
And he hasn't said, no, he hasn't said. But I'm just.
He hasn't said, but he can. The law allows him to do that. I don't know if he's going to.
There might be a reversible error issue here at some point, and that's one of the things.
See, now he's going to bring up legal terms that I don't.
Because it's a legal thing. Yeah, sentencing is a legal thing. That's why I'm bringing it up.
And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. We did want to ask you, our viewers, do you think Sean Diddy Combs should be freed today or serve a prison term? You can vote here if you scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen, or head to livenowfox.com/connect. You can weigh in. We'll pop this up throughout this interview here. Before we bring in Larry Neumeister with the Associated Press, he's been covering this extensively. And if you are just tuning in, Sean Diddy Combs facing sentencing today in a criminal case that could keep him locked up for years. So let's bring in Larry right now here on Live Now from Fox, joining us outside courthouse. Good morning to you, Larry. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Good morning.
Right.
It's going to be a long day.
It is going to be a long day. I know you're going to head right inside there after we get off with you, so we're going to try to not take up too much of your time. But let's start with this. We know several people are set to speak today, lawyers, at least one victim. Given that, as you just said, how long can this go on? Is this going to wrap up today?
They're saying it is expected to last the entire day, and they're not even sure it's going to finish. It could continue over till Monday. It really depends upon how long it all takes. The defense has a video they want to show that's probably about 11 minutes in length. But they also have 4 defense lawyers who are expected to speak. And that's going to stretch it out. Also, the prosecution will speak. Oftentimes with these sentencing proceedings, they argue about things you might not expect, like how to calculate the federal sentencing guidelines that judges don't have to follow, but they're supposed to calculate them and then decide how it plays into what the ultimate sentence is. So sometimes I've seen arguments for something like that go on for 3 hours, or they could be arguing over what's the amount of money involved in the crime and how that might factor into the sentencing. You just never know what roads they might go down that might make the sentencing last a lot longer than you expect. I saw that poll that you're conducting. That was interesting because let's keep in mind, first of all, Combs has already spent almost 13 months behind bars. His defense lawyers say that's enough. He shouldn't spend any more time in jail. But the prosecution says he should not spend less than 11 years and 3 months in prison. And the probation department that the judges use as a barometer of how perhaps the evidence should be used as they make their decisions, the probation department is recommending a 12-year prison term. Oftentimes, I find the judges in this courthouse tend to cut it down the middle. If that occurred, it would mean that Combs would probably get a sentence somewhere between 4 to 6 years. But it's impossible to predict. This judge hasn't been particularly lenient since the conviction at trial. Initially, his defense lawyers tried to get him out of prison right away, or out of jail right away. He's in a federal lockup in Brooklyn. They said that because he was exonerated on the 2 most serious charges, sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, that because of that, he's only convicted on lesser charges of basically prostitution-related charges. And as a result of that, they say he should be freed now. And that, they obeying the jury's verdict would be not sending him to prison more. But prosecutions say his long history of violence and all the bad things he did and the people he harmed means he should spend considerable more time behind bars.
Larry, going off of that, we do know that he's set to be sentenced for violating the Federal Mann Act. And for our viewers, that's an anti-prostitution law with a century-old history. Does that play into the sentencing at all here today? And if so, how?
Well, it's an interesting law. I mean, the defense says it's so outdated, it's ridiculous that he's even, still in jail, and that he's, being considered for more years behind bars. But the prosecution says that this law was meant to prevent all the things that come with those prostitution-related crimes, like drugs, which played prominent role in the Combs case, and the prostitution, the abuse of women, which again they say played a big role in the case, and especially in the violence. Combs was on video beating up his now ex-girlfriend, Cassie. The longer name is Cassandra. Her nickname is Cassie, and Ventura. She's been very public, even writing a letter to the judge saying he should spend considerable time in jail because his victims are fearful of him, that when he gets out, he'll seek retribution against them. So, prosecution put in 7 letters from many of I believe 6 of them had testified at the trial, saying these people fear for their lives if he gets out. And they're not buying a letter he wrote to the judge that was submitted last night, in which he says he is a changed man. He says that when he was first locked up in August of last year, or actually September of last year, he became very depressed and considered that maybe his life shouldn't even go on. And he has been, his lawyers say, on suicide watch the entire time he's been in jail. But now he says he's full of a positive spirit. He's a changed man. He said he's not doing drugs or alcohol for the first time in 25 years. And he's not going to be the Sean Combs that he was before. And that on that basis alone, he should really be given considerable leniency. So it'll be up to the judge to weigh all these factors and decide what he ultimately decides is the punishment. I will say this, though. Even after he was exonerated on the 2 most serious charges, which one of them carried a mandatory minimum of 15 years behind bars, the others also carried life sentences. So he was visibly happy in court as soon as he was exonerated on those charges. And I think his defense lawyers expected him even to get out that day in early July. But this judge has not been receptive to their arguments that he should have even been freed on bail. And the judge has cited the violence that occurred that he used against his girlfriends, and his ex-girlfriends say that violence was used to coerce them to have these wild, sexual experiences where male sex workers would be hired to have sex with his then girlfriends, now ex-girlfriends, while he watched and some often filmed the encounters. His lawyers later tried to claim that the filming of the encounters turned him into a porn producer, and thus the charges should be thrown out on the grounds that he was exercising his First Amendment rights when he was having these sexual experiences, which his defense lawyers dismiss as just simple threesomes. But the judge rejected that argument and said the charges remain, and he will be sentencing him today and possibly Monday, but hopefully just today.
Right. And Larry, I wanted to ask you here, as we do have this poll up once again for our viewers, should he be freed? Should he serve time? As you said, he's already served a good amount of time there. But I wanted to ask you whether this wraps up today, whether this wraps up Monday, what comes next after the sentencing for not just Combs, but maybe even the other individuals who were involved in all of this?
Well, there will certainly be a long appeal that will go on for years. Especially if it's a longer sentence. And his lawyers will make a motion saying our arguments on appeal are so good that he should be freed pending appeal. those arguments would most certainly be rejected by this judge, who, throughout his believed that Combs belonged behind bars, in part, initially when he was locked up and not granted bail after his arrest. The judge cited the fact that he had apparently spoken to some of the individuals who the government was contacting and considering using a trial against him. And the judge, believed that there was possibly witness tampering going on. And so this judge is, a lot will depend on how the judge reacts to the letter that Combs wrote to the judge saying he's a changed man and he would never do the things he did before or now. And if the judge buys that argument, he could be more lenient, but it's very possible he might see that, he has said things like that in the past, even before he was arrested, sounding like the greatest guy on the earth. This promotional video that his defense lawyers put out today, which the judge will see, about 11 minutes long, it shows him just being the greatest guy. All these clips of him playing at the beach with children and giving inspiring speeches about how to live life to children and his employees and other people, and just seeming to be the greatest guy in the world. And we all know that was when some of the worst things were happening. So it's possible the judge might see that video and say, wow, you said a lot of the same things you said in the letter to me yesterday. You were saying things like that when these videos were recorded. So, and the judge is also mindful that Combs has 8 lawyers. I mean, most defendants in this courthouse are lucky to have one lawyer. And he's this is, I'm sure, costing probably tens of millions of dollars to defend him. And the defense lawyers are making every argument possible and filing more papers with the judge than pretty much I've ever seen. And I've been here 33 years. So, he's got a forceful voice on his side in the form of all of these lawyers, and also some former employees and such who came out in his favor, and his family members wrote powerful letters, trying to influence the judge. So it'll be very interesting just to hear what the judge says today and how he reacts to everything that's been filed. And even if there isn't a sentence dispensed today, I believe we'll get a pretty clear indication of where the judge is headed by the comments he makes as he's listening to the various arguments, both by the defense and prosecution.
Right. We have seen he has also twice rejected bail for Combs as well. So interesting to see how this is going to play out. Larry, before I let you go, because I know you got to run inside, just really quickly here, you have been covering this the past several months. You've been inside that courtroom. What has this been like for you as a member of the media who is covering a very high-profile case? Can you just share some insight into that? Because you have a perspective a lot of us don't have.
Well, yeah, I've seen famous people in the courtroom before. There was the Martha Stewart trial back in the early 2000s. And, we've had a lot of big cases in this courthouse where the media has paid a lot of attention to what's going on. Sean Combs is an interesting defendant because he was so engaged in his defense. He was constantly talking to his lawyers, writing them notes. When Cassie was on the witness stand for 4 days, testifying while she was 9 months pregnant, he must have written, dozens, if not 100 notes to his lawyers, probably suggesting questions. But there were also a couple of occasions where he stopped his lawyers from asking a witness questions, and actually controlled when they ended their cross-examinations. You don't see that happening very often with defendants. But remember who he is. He's this incredible music producer who's had this history of such an impact in the hip hop world, in the music world. He knows how to produce things. He knows how to, in this instance, influence his lawyers and try to control what's happening in the courtroom. And it seems to have worked to him to some degree because he did get exonerated on the two most serious charges. So we'll see what happens at the sentencing. It'll be very interesting.
All right, Larry Neumeister, I know you have a long day ahead of you. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. I'm sure we'll check in with you later on as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
She found something in the letter, in Diddy's letter, bullying. I don't know.
I don't think that moves things one way or another.
No, and as we said, Mia
She's
is not
a main
directly.
player in the case.
This is going to be, I'll tell you, the judge has made a decision.
But can it change is the question. Like,
Yeah,
like with a Hail Mary, if it can't change, then maybe he should speak.
What could be said that is going to change the judge at this point?
What is he going to say beyond the letter that he submitted, beyond that video? Like, it's all there already. So
Yeah, the only,
and he's not playing up to cameras. Like, to your point, which you made yesterday, I think it's true that part of this is him starting his public rehabilitation or attempting to.
Right.
But there are no cameras in court. So for him to speak, the judge.
Right. They're trying to
isn't gonna be
accomplish that
any-
with this video, actually, because that is public.
Do you have a mic on? Guys, whoever's going to be doing updates needs a microphone. Well, Janet, you should have one too.
Do we have another mic for Liam?
We need a mic. We need a microphone for Liam because he's the one doing updates.
Isn't there a risk, though, that if Diddy speaks, yeah, you want the connection with the judge, that he's going to go
Turn
off
off the
the
judge.
cuff, that he could say something that sort of shows his hand a little bit?
Right? Because if you pluck the heartstring, you pluck the right one, and maybe the number that he has written in his statement, because I do believe the judge has a prepared statement, but the number can change.
Yeah.
He can do that on the fly. And if he says the right thing, it can change for the better. I don't think there's many where it changes for the worse, because he's going to be saying such positive things unless it falls completely inauthentic.
Well, he's not
Is
gonna-
the judge going to say
He's not
20
gonna give it
years?
more.
He's going to go higher.
What is he? What can he say?
Yeah.
I do want to
can
read
you
a
say?
poll. So I want to read a poll because we had almost 1,000 people respond. How much time do you think Diddy will get? 1 to 4 years, 5 to 9 years, over 10 years? An overwhelming majority of 53% said 1 to 4 years.
5 to 9.
Yeah, it's going to be 1 to 4.
1 to 4.
It's 1 to 4.
I think your over underline
Again,
was off.
my guess, and I'm totally guessing, but I'm kind of not. I mean, I think 40 months.
40 months.
I think it's going to be 40 months.
All right.
I think 5.5 years is my
And time served included in the 40 months, obviously.
Right. Yeah, of course.
He's done, what, 18 months now?
No, he's in a year.
12,
He's in a
13.
year.
13 months?
It's going to
Okay.
end up being about 13.
So 27
But he
months.
also gets 15%
I think
credit.
he's going to have rough.
So he'll be out in a year and a half.
But there are other credits he gets too. He'll be out in a year with that.
That's not what the judge has indicated in any of his rulings.
No,
In all of his rulings on bail, on denying the acquittal, he has indicated that he finds him
here it
violent.
is. Will he be in jail or out of jail on June 15th, 2027? It's a year and 8 months from now.
I will say in jail.
What's happening on June 15th? Why are you picking
Why
that
did you
date?
pick that? Just
Date that I picked. I'm the MC here.
Well, no, I'd rather do 2 years from today because I think that's more likely. I think 2 years
Even
from
with
today
time
he's
served?
out. With times. Well, it's always time served.
Excuse the bookies.
What are you getting?
Janet?
Sorry, the judge just said that the letter, the tone was inappropriate and it shouldn't happen again.
Which letter?
Diddy's letter.
The one from yesterday.
Really? Interesting.
He said the tone was inappropriate and it shouldn't happen again.
Let's pull that letter up.
It's
What do you say now?
You got the
Yeah.
letter?
He doesn't even like his letter.
That is really.
I said
He doesn't even like his
5.5
letter.
is my
Can we get Derek a mic?
Take the over.
Since he's going to be talking?
Did he apologize?
Right,
Or-
the defense's letter, it's Diddy.
4.5 is the over-under line.
And I take the over.
Read the
Let's
letter.
get the letter. This is really interesting.
Because they also had just talked about
Oh, I know.
the letter in terms of me.
I was going to pull it up on my computer.
And then you're like, oh, I'm not
judge
gonna
meant-
Well, no, I would do it on my computer.
But the judge meant by
Oh, well, then
inappropriate.
do
It was
that.
too
Okay.
long.
What's the?
Dear Judge Subramanian.
Yes. Here, Charles.
Oh, by the way,
For your
we
eyes,
have to
Charles.
do a.
Well, we
Oh,
would've
you have
known
it
about
printed
it,
out?
yeah.
We are going to be doing
okay, I'll clarify that.
a live talk back with our affiliate here
Hey,
in
how
Los Angeles,
come the live
ATC?
stream's not up on the website?
It is. It's in the top story, the Diddy story.
Oh, you put it in that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just to clarify, he said the defense's letter when referencing the one the tone was inappropriate, but unless there was another letter submitted.
I mean,
I
this
think
is
it's
the
that
only
letter.
Yeah.
I got it right here, Charles.
I hope this letter finds you well and in good health.
I can do it in big.
Thank you for the opportunity to express my thoughts to you. First and foremost, I want to apologize and say how sincerely sorry I am for all the hurt and pain that I have caused others by my conduct. I take full responsibility and accountability for my past wrongs. This has been the hardest 2 years of my life, and I have no one to blame for my current reality and situation but myself. In my life, I've made many mistakes, but I am no longer running from them. I'm so sorry for the hurt that I caused, but I understand that the mere words, "I'm sorry," will never be good enough, as these words alone cannot erase the pain from the past.
Okay, let's do this as the 4 questions where then the next person speaks at the table. Over the past 13 months.
Harvey, we have to do this live
I know.
shot in
I have had to look in the mirror like never before. My pain became my teacher. My sadness was my motivator. I have to admit, my downfall was rooted in my selfishness. The scene and images of me assaulting Cassie play over and over in my head daily. I literally lost my mind. I was dead wrong for putting my hands on the woman that I loved. I'm sorry for that and always will be. My domestic violence will always be a heavy burden that I will forever carry. The remorse, the sorrow, the regret, the disappointment, the shame. I honestly feel sorry for something that I couldn't forgive someone else for. If they put their hands on one of my daughters, this is why it's so hard for me to forgive myself. It's like a deep wound that would leave an ugly scar. So he goes on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 pages here. We're not gonna read the whole thing.
What is awful about
so
that tone?
interesting.
It's a very
So
standard
how
tone.
about this? Why don't you guys look for anything in the tone?
We gotta
gonna
do our
talk
live
to
shot.
KTTV.
We're going to do a
Bob
live
and
shot
Jen?
now for KTTV right now, which is going to be like 2 minutes, but you can watch it. And we're going to talk about this. What?
That is in part, the prosecution said, because of a letter the defense submitted to the judge seeking to block Mia from speaking, writing that, quote, virtually everything that came out of her mouth, end quote, while on the stand during the trial, quote, was a lie. That's the letter.
Was that a letter or a motion?
It was a letter, but they've been sending.
Well, no, but that would be a motion,
That was
not a
the
letter.
one we wrote about that yesterday.
But that's New York Times says that's what they're referring
But
to.
it was all of them, Harvey, were written as letters. This is a letter from Diddy, but every motion going back and forth have been these letters to the judge. Dear,
Right, it's dear
Judge
Judge,
Supermanian.
yeah.
So he could be referring to a letter written by
So
lawyers.
they said Mia was lying.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
What was
This is the one we wrote yesterday.
What
did
was
we write about
inappropriate that the judge said?
No.
What did he say?
Saying, well, he said that, quote, the tone of the defense's letter was inappropriate. Which,
Yeah.
He said that in their
Okay.
communication with the
We're
court,
gonna
they
do it
said
over there.
virtually everything that came out of
Yeah.
Mia's
We
mouth
can just do it here.
was a lie.
That's the quote
We
from
can
the
have people
letter,
in
yeah.
it.
And
Yeah,
so
no, that's fine.
that's what the judge is saying, that when they accused Mia of lying and everything that she said, that was the inappropriate comment.
Oh, and that's why Mia says she felt bullied
And
and
that's
won't
why she
testify.
felt bullied, and that's why she's not going to
And
testify.
that letter was out of pocket. It was.
Well, that's also a sign that not so fast, Diddy.
Yes.
That maybe they will consider some of the stuff that Mia said.
Yeah, I think they will.
Well, we'll see.
And especially with her saying she felt intimidated to speak in court now. Are we on with?
No, we can look over there. Okay, so we're doing a live shot for the Fox affiliate in Los Angeles. It's going to be like 2 minutes, but we'll keep you up to date. We're going to be talking. It's fine. We got it.
Courthouse there, where Sean Diddy Combs is
got it.
expected to be sentenced at some point
We'll just
this
take our own
morning.
cue, Daniela.
Proceedings getting underway as we speak. You may recall back in July, a jury convicted him on 2 counts of transportation to
And
engage
you guys,
in
as
prostitution.
updates happen,
It comes as Combs
we want to hear 'em.
is asking
So
for
interrupt us.
leniency. He wrote a letter
Okay.
to the judge expressing
This is just going to be part of the what?
and remorse towards the actions towards his alleged towards those victims. Meantime, prosecutors are seeking a harsher sentence.
Joining us now to talk
Who's
more
saying
about
this?
the case is TMZ's
Who?
Harvey Levin and Charles Latsaboudier. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here this morning. Big day in courts. What can we expect from the judge? I know a lot of people are also supposed to be getting up there and speaking.
Yeah, but just so you know, we're live streaming right now. So there's going to be some
movement. There's going to be, we're hearing updates coming in from court.
There's already stuff going on here. The judge is pissed off at the defense for submitting a letter saying that one of the alleged victims, Mia,
who was a former assistant of Diddy's.
Former assistant of
testified
Diddy's.
about being held hostage, not held,
Kidnapped.
kidnapped and she had to do a lie detector test and all of that. Yeah.
So in a letter to the judge, the defense said she was a liar, and the judge got in the stand and said that was inappropriate. And
by the way, she has said she's not going to speak in court today because she felt bullied by that letter. So the judge is
so this resonated with the judge. The other thing that I think is just shocking and tone deaf is the defense submitted this slick 12-minute video of showing how great a person Diddy is.
Have you guys played this video yet this morning?
We saw bits and pieces of it.
It is.
I mean, tone deaf.
It's something else.
Tone deaf to do that. I mean, it is a produced, not authentic version of somebody's life, because juxtapose that against the Cassie video. So what they're trying to do is kind of counter that, but it looks like a Hollywood movie. And I don't think that's going to play with the judge.
Played in his memoriam or something at an award show. And
it's interesting because it's an audience of one, really, unless it's really like an audience that, you know, they're trying to play this out in the court of public opinion, right? Maybe they're doing this now because whatever is said here for an appeal in this case, they'll be able to say all of these things and sort of get some empathy from the public.
Bob, I think you hit it on the head.
I think they're trying for that. I don't know that it's even landing with the public.
That's what they're trying. Look, they got to rehabilitate this guy. I'm going to guess. I'm going to take a wild guess, and I don't know, but they're not going to give him 11 years. And I don't think they're going to give him time served by any means. I think it's going to be like 40 months. And I may be wrong, but ultimately, he's going to get out. And he's got to start rehabilitating when all eyes are on him. I don't know that this is the way to do it, but I think that was the play.
I'm just basing it on the comments on our live stream.
Oh, they hated it.
When we played that video. Nobody
hated it.
Felt like
right.
Everyone said that, you know, the real him is the guy you saw beating Cassie because he didn't know he was being recorded there. All of that stuff in this video is produced. He knows that there are cameras there, and it's easy to say that he's putting on a show.
Liam, is there anything else that just happened? No.
By the way, have you guys? He's wearing. He's in white. So he's wearing a white collared shirt with a white crew neck sweater.
Just so you know, I was told last night that the prosecution is going to take hours to present their case on this. Diddy, who submitted a letter to the judge the other day, I'm told he still might speak. I think there's some conflict among his team, but he might speak. And no matter what his team says, what I'm told is he's a wild card, and depending on how he thinks it's going, he may just spontaneously say to the judge, I want to speak. But I know there's some feeling among some of that team that
he should not.
That he should.
Oh, that he should.
That a letter doesn't connect with the judge the way eyeballs do. And that.
But now, at the very start of this, you have the judge admonishing his team. Does that make him feel like?
It's not a very good way to start off.
It's not. It's a terrible way of starting off.
But that may make him feel like, okay, I need to save this.
Right. And that may well be the case. So he may. I'll tell you, if I had to bet on this, I don't see how he doesn't at this point. I mean, when you think about ego.